Well, hello everybody. How are we doing on this Thursday? I kind of psyched about the review plan that we have for Macbeth because I found this person that does the videos and they have a very dry sense of humor. So it's pretty funny. They're just kind of like, oh, well, this happened, and then they'll provide their own judgment against the character on it. They're like, yeah, he did this. Probably should have done that. I would have had to rehearse this like 5 times to not bust out laughing at what the person was saying. So I don't know how many times it took them to do it, but I have 2 videos for you. And so after we have the videos, which kind of just goes over everything. Um, People are still coming in. So it's a summary video, and then it's a character analysis video. Um, so feel free to ask me questions. I keep the chat up, so even when I'm sharing my screen, I keep the chat up on the screen that is not being shared. And you're all on focus mode, and you guys can't see each other. So if somebody asks a question that will benefit everybody, I will repeat the question, but I won't say who said it. And then I will tell everybody the answer so that we can all benefit from the Q&A. All right, so that's not where I wanted to go. My mouse died on me, my wireless mouse, so now I have to use the touchpad on the laptop itself. It's awkward, but gets the job done. Okay, so sharing my screen. So by the end of this presentation, you either should have all of your Macbeth questions answered, or it should provoke you to ask what you need to. So it's kind of like a guided group study is what we're doing right now. So I like to do it's kind of hokey animation, but you know. All right. Let me get the link in the chat so that you guys can join me in this. Okay, there you go. And we will review Macbeth together. So there's an opportunity at the end of both videos where you'll get an open-ended question, and it'll just be like, what questions do you have? So if you don't have any, then please let me know you don't have any. But if there's anything that you're still not sure about when it comes to what's going on in this, I would like to know now, because on Monday when you have your final, it's on Acts 2 through 5 of this play. I don't have any questions about anything else. So if you don't know Macbeth, you're not going to get a good grade. All righty. Let us begin. I'll play the video. I keep making this other side menu come up. I go in the wrong spot and it also is like, luckily it doesn't look like you guys see it. So that's cool. All right. So only one question at the end, and it's basically asking if you have any questions.
Why wait?
Wow. Hate it when they do the ads in the middle. Come on, let me skip.
Channel. This first series is all about Macbeth, so if you haven't got a copy already, check out the links in the description for some of my recommended versions. I'll be doing follow-up videos to this summary on themes, character analysis, notable quotes, and everything you will need to not only learn, but have fun as well. So if you enjoy this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Easy as GCSE presents Shakespeare in 7 minutes. Macbeth. Macbeth is one of William Shakespeare's most popular tragedies, and it is likely that you may already be familiar with some aspects of it, even if you have never read or watched the play before. It is nicknamed the Scottish play because, you guessed it, it's set in Scotland, sometime during the 11th century. Shakespeare's plays can be quite daunting to study, but after this video, I hope you'll see that all of his works are simply stories that are easy to understand with a little practice. With that said, let's jump straight into Macbeth. Act 1. Macbeth is the title character of the play, which means that his name is also the name of the play, and he along with his friend Banquo are generals in the army of King Duncan. While returning from a battle, they run into a group of witches in a bog, who tell Macbeth that he will be the Thane of Cawdor, a high-ranking title, and later King of Scotland. Banquo is told that he will not be King of Scotland, but that his descendants will be. Because of this rather good news, they are keen to find out more details, but annoyingly, the witches disappear. Not long afterwards, Macbeth actually does get promoted to Thane of Cawdor, which makes him think that the witches may have been onto something. On top of that good fortune, King Duncan also plans to honour Macbeth with a visit to his castle in Inverness. Macbeth promptly writes home to tell his wife, Lady Macbeth, about his new position, and also about the strange encounter with the witches. Now unfortunately, Lady Macbeth happens to be far more ruthless than her husband, so she is immediately determined to help him fulfill his destiny by whatever wicked means necessary. Act 2. When the king arrives at Macbeth's castle, Lady Macbeth is quick to suggest that they use this opportunity to murder him. Macbeth is hesitant, but agrees after a lot of pressure from his wife. She does her bit by sedating the guards with spiked wine, but leaves Macbeth to do the dirty work of actually killing Duncan. As any normal person would, Macbeth is overcome with guilt at what he has done, but Lady Macbeth sets him straight by berating him for his cowardice. She then frames the poor guards with the daggers covered in the king's blood. At this critical moment, the nobleman Macduff decides to turn up at their gates unexpectedly. So after a bit of frantic running around, they make a great show of finding the king's corpse and executing the unlucky guards. Guessing quite rightly that whoever has killed their father is bound to come after them next, the dead king's sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, manage to escape the castle and Macbeth's murderous grasp. Act 3. Now that Duncan is dead, or rather murdered, Macbeth is crowned King of Scotland, and the witch's prophecy comes true. However, his pesky conscience keeps him from enjoying his success as he is plagued by paranoia. His biggest worry is that his friend Banquo has a son, Fleance, and the witches did mention that Banquo's descendants would be kings. To rectify this, Macbeth puts a hit out on the two unsuspecting men, and Banquo is murdered, but Fleance is able to escape. Plunged even further into his pit of guilt, Macbeth sees the ghost of Banquo at a banquet that night, and is scared nearly out of his mind, causing Lady Macbeth to begin to have a few doubts of her own. Act 4. To calm himself down after these traumatic incidents, Macbeth decides to return to the source of these events, the mysterious witches. They reassure him that no harm will come to him unless Birnam Wood, the surrounding forest, marches to fight him. Even better, no man born of a woman will be able to defeat him. These two statements at the time were the equivalent of saying, "when pigs fly," so Macbeth is suitably calmed. However, The witches reiterate that Banquo's descendants will still be king, which puts Macbeth into a state again. He goes on a murderous rampage, killing all those associated with the opposition, including Macduff's family. But not Macduff, as he had joined up with Malcolm and Donalbain to fight against Macbeth. Act 5. Holed up in his castle at Dunsinane, Macbeth is shocked to learn that Birnam Wood, from the witch's prophecy, appears to be marching towards him. Malcolm's army cleverly cut down branches from the trees and held them in front as camouflage to create this illusion. Adding to Macbeth's misery is the news that Lady Macbeth has taken her own life after being tormented by sleepwalking and visions of blood on her hands that cannot be cleaned. Macbeth and his army are on the verge of defeat, but there is one last glimmer of hope given to him by the witches. No man born of a woman can kill him. Armed with this prophecy, he accepts a challenge from Macduff, only to learn mid-battle that Macduff was born via C-section, so technically he is not born of a woman. Realizing that the witches had craftily foretold his doom rather than assure him of security, Macbeth is defeated, and Macduff takes his head to Malcolm, who ends the play promising peace and going off to a city called Scone to be crowned the new king of Scotland.
Yeah,
See, that wasn't so bad. And now
that
that you're familiar with the basics of Macbeth, stay tuned to my channel for a more in-depth study coming soon. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to get more GC.
nothing like using a raccoon to do your marketing. Okay, so the screen is paused. So if you put your answer in there, it won't be displayed. I will go to the next screen but after I get the answers. Okay. No. It's a pretty funny video I like to watch where this guy goes through different types of words, where it's like the OUGH, how it changes from like a F sound to an O sound. It's like, okay, so tough. Then you take the T off and you do a D, and so the other guy goes, Duff? He goes, no. Okay. Did they actually think it is a C-section back then? How did they even work that without anesthesia or proper medical equipment? Medical question. Very nice. They did have to open people up sometimes. Women did not survive childbirth too well. I believe they used alcohol. A lot of times, if they had to do a surgical procedure, they had to knock the person out, at times literally. So if the person had already passed out from pain or something like that, they would just do the surgical procedure. I watched House of Dragon, where they kind of demonstrated this, and it was a bloody, excruciating scene. And the person, the lady that was having it done to her, screamed a lot and then passed away. So yeah, it could have also been, because they really don't tell us this, if she passed away. So if she was in childbirth, or she was somehow otherwise killed, or died of natural causes and was far enough along in the pregnancy, they would try and open her up to try and save the baby. So there's a couple of options there, but none of them are great. Okay, a lot of no questions. All righty. give you another minute or two on that one before we go on to our character analysis video. It's the same lady with the same animation. I don't have any questions now. Nope. Okay. Kind of funny when going over literature from I would say earlier than 1900s. I do like to go into some kind of stuff about how they did things medically, because it really did impact uh, how people thought. Okay, how does Macbeth's ambition contribute to his downfall? What does that say about Shakespeare's view on power and mortality? Oh, very deep. I like that one. Okay, so Macbeth is a very successful person. We find that out with his war, and he was a war hero. And so whatever he does well. So when he found out that he was destined to be king and that was not going well, his ambition, and more so his wife's ambition and wanting to make her happy, this is one instance where I have to say, happy wife, happy life does not really make it all that well. Makes him take that path of murdering and taking the throne and trying to keep it. He kind of it puts him in a state of mind where he can no longer be comfortable. Apparently, he's not okay with murdering people and unjustly sitting on the throne, which makes his ambition and his moral compass kind of wrestle. Moral compass is like, don't murder people and be loyal to your king. And ambition's like, murder the king and sit on his throne. So, Shakespeare's view on power and mortality are very interesting because this has happened in several of his works where the person in power is usually the most corrupt. A different play he does is called King Lear. And King Lear has 3 daughters. And 2 of the daughters are married. We don't know if they have children, though. They don't really mention them, so we got no idea. And he tells his daughters, each of you tell me how much you love me. And depending on how much each of you love me is how much of my kingdom I'll divide up amongst the 3 of you. So the first daughter is like, oh, I love you so much, father. And that kind of a thing. So he's like, okay, you get a third. Second daughter, oh, father, I love you so much more. She still just gets a third. And the last daughter is like, hey, you don't know how much I love you by this point. Seriously. So he's like, she gets none, the other 2 get halfsies for when he goes. Well, long story short, all of them end up dying. So Shakespeare doesn't seem to have a very good view on people in power having high morality. And given what had happened in the royal families in his time and right before, I don't think I would either. Good question, though. Okay, we are going to move on to our second video, and I will resume my screen. So some of you got really deep there. It's pretty cool. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to look at character analysis.
Why wait?
Oh, and we have commercials again. I have to say there are less commercials than when I watch these directly on YouTube. But still, we shouldn't have any. They pay a lot for Nearpod.
As the title character and tragic hero of this play, it is no surprise that Macbeth is deeply complex, too complex in fact to merely be slapped with the label of villain. All of Shakespeare's tragic heroes have what is known as a fatal flaw, a characteristic that ultimately leads to their downfall. In Macbeth's case, it is commonly thought to be his overwhelming ambition and desire for power. This is coupled, however, with a very guilty conscience, which leads to a lot of inner conflict in the form of soliloquies, a monologue which is spoken aloud to oneself without any other characters hearing it. This allows the audience to feel a little sympathy for Macbeth, because we are aware of the turmoil going on inside his head. Although he commits some truly terrible acts in his pursuit of power, it is important that we recognize and understand the journey his character takes from celebrated war hero to murderous usurper. Let's have a look at this transformation starting from the beginning. Macbeth is first mentioned in Act 1, Scene 2, where a messenger is relaying the outcome of a recent battle to King Duncan. He refers to him as Brave Macbeth, and describes in gory detail how he defeated the king's foe. He unseamed him from the nave to the chops and fixed his head upon our battlements. From this violent description, we can see that Macbeth is no stranger to war, and is certainly not squeamish about taking the lives of those he deems worthy of killing. He is also portrayed as a hero figure that King Duncan holds in high esteem. He calls him, "O valiant cousin, worthy gentleman." Even though Macbeth is not in this scene, it is important because we are learning a lot about what other people think of him before we even get a chance to see or hear him. We can gather from this conversation that Macbeth is essentially the perfect royal subject, and is being placed on a pedestal by his king and country, which makes his actions later on seem even more uncharacteristic. In Act 1, Scene 3, Macbeth stumbles upon the witches with his fellow captain Banquo, and we are able to see how his character changes when the seeds of ambition are sown. The witches promise him that he will be the Thane of Cawdor and King of Scotland, but rather than rejoice at this good news, he
The product does boats now? Sheesh. Got a Prada boat. Sailing in style.
and tragic hero of this play. It is no surprise that Macbeth is deeply complex, too complex in fact to merely
it
be
started
slapped
us
with the
over.
label of king.
Amy's not at work.
Come on. Now the commercials are messing with the lessons.
Bloody dagger in Act 2, Scene 1, which speaks to the state of his subconscious, yet it is not enough to deter him from his task. He returns to Lady Macbeth in Scene 3, with both literal and figurative blood on his hands, and instantly feels guilt for what he has done. He confesses that he is no longer able to even say the word Amen, and hears a ghostly voice saying, "Sleep no more, Macbeth does murder sleep." We know that as a soldier Macbeth is used to bloodshed, so when he says, "I am afraid to think what I have done, look on it again I dare not," it is not due to cowardice or squeamishness, but rather fear of the moral and spiritual consequences. Despite the toll on his mental state, by Act 3, Scene 1, Macbeth is now King of Scotland. But with this new title comes a wave of paranoia regarding the witch's prophecy. If all that they promised him had come true, then it is likely that Banquo's heirs would be the future rulers of Scotland, rather than his own descendants. Although his ambition has carried him to the highest position in the country, he still wants more, and is now determined to secure the throne not only for himself, but for his children as well. He uses this to justify his intended actions, as otherwise everything he has done till now would essentially be for Banquo's descendants, not his. However, his conscience still forbids him to personally carry out the deeds, and he instead hires assassins to kill Banquo and his son Fleance. With each bad decision he becomes more comfortable tapping into his dark side, and evokes some telling imagery in Act 3, Scene 2, when he says, "Come, sealing night, scarf up the tender eye of pitiful day. Night's black agents to their praise do rouse." He is welcoming the cover of night to hide his sins and shunning the light which would expose him. Later at the banquet in Act 3, Scene 4, he is troubled by yet another supernatural vision, the ghost of Banquo, which sends him into a babbling state of fear. Because nobody else can see the ghost apart from Macbeth, we could interpret this as a manifestation of his guilt, similar to the bloody dagger, although Shakespearean audiences would probably have viewed these apparitions more literally.
Why wait? Start your MD this September at Rossmed and be
Maybe put extra ones in this one.
So disturbed by this that he goes off to find the witches again in Act 4, Scene 1, in order to gain their assurances that he is secure in his position. In answer, they show him 3 visions. The first, an armed head, which tells him to beware Macduff. The second, a child covered in blood, which tells him none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. And the third, a child with a crown on his head holding a tree branch, who says Macbeth is safe until Birnam Wood marches against his castle in Dunsinane. Interestingly, Macbeth seems to disregard the first warning completely in favor of the other prophecies, which he takes very literally. He cannot imagine how a child could be born any way apart from a woman, or how a forest can uproot itself and move towards his castle, so he assumes himself safe. However, he is also shown that Banquo's descendants will still be the future kings of Scotland, and this news rekindles his paranoia. This time it is aimed at Macduff's family, because he did not show up to the banquet to support Macbeth. Once again, he orders assassins to carry out the execution on his behalf, due to his inability to reconcile his conscience with the despicable act of murdering women and children. The next time we see Macbeth is in Act 5, Scene 3, where Macbeth is preparing for war against Malcolm's army. There is a distinctive change in his character, which can be partly attributed to him being in his element as a soldier.
Your life is your choice,
Alright.
so if you feel
We don't start it over again.
Armed with the witch's prophecies, and therefore has a certain bravado about him, as he still believes himself untouchable. He is also less emotional, and seems to accept that his present circumstances are due to the consequences of his actions. When he hears a cry signaling the death of Lady Macbeth, he remarks, "I have almost forgot the taste of fears. Direness familiar to my slaughterous thoughts cannot once start me." His inner turmoil seems to have quieted, as the news of his wife's death does not trigger another tortured soliloquy, but rather a weary reflection on the pointlessness of life. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. He is not allowed to dwell long on this tragedy, as he soon learns that Birnam Wood is marching towards him, which turns out to be nothing more than a cunning disguise employed by Malcolm's army. But even as he begins to realize his doom, he is undeterred, and seems to reclaim a piece of his former brave and heroic self, proclaiming, "Blow, wind, come, rack, at least we'll die with harness on our back." Finally, in Act 5, Scene 10, Macbeth comes head-to-head with the nobleman Macduff, who is not born of a woman, but through a C-section. In the face of certain defeat, we are once again reminded of the man we were first introduced to, as he refuses to surrender and kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet. Instead, he chooses to go out on his own terms, exclaiming, "Before my body I throw my warlike shield. Lay on, Macduff, and damned be him that first cries, 'Hold, enough!'" As we look at the evolution of Macbeth's character, it is hard not to feel an underlying sense of tragedy throughout the play. Macbeth is a soldier with a distinct sense of right and wrong, as he is very much aware of the despicable nature of his crimes, and carries the weight of them constantly. However, his ambition, or his fatal flaw, is so deeply rooted that he cannot stop his dark side from controlling his actions. His superstitious nature is also detrimental because his fascination with the witches puts him in a state of denial regarding the devious nature of their prophecies. In the end, far from being a forgettable two-dimensional villain, he has remained a subject of great interest to the present day, which may be because his basic character traits are very relatable. At some point we have all experienced feelings of ambition, or a desire to do the wrong thing in order to benefit ourselves. So Macbeth serves as a tragic warning of the consequences of letting these potentially fatal flaws overrule your sense of morality. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget
Would enjoy it a lot more if you didn't have so many commercials in it. Okay, So go to this part. And I'm pausing my screen so that your answers will not be displayed. So let me know what questions you still have. None? Okay. Got some that say no questions. Not right now. Alrighty. Give it another couple minutes. Okay, somebody's got a really long question that they're typing out for me.
Excuse me, I have a quick question.
Yeah, what's your question?
Can you send me my uh progress learning ID?
The code for progress learning?
Yeah, for my ID.
Oh, yeah, I have to log into that. Once I'm not sharing my screen, I can look that up.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, nobody has questions. All right, moving on. So now we are on multiple choice. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen while you guys work on the multiple choice questions. I'm getting into progress learning now. Anybody that needs their ID, please let me know in the chat and I will reply to you with what your ID is. Okay, never mind. It's not letting me in progress learning. That's okay. It's letting me in now. Getting this error code. I don't know why. Okay. We got a couple of people that are getting perfect scores on this. I think we're gonna have some pretty good grades on our final then. You guys are good with this. And a couple more people finishing up. But all in all, I am getting some very good results on this. Shakespeare is not the easiest to understand. So if you're struggling with this, it's been happening for about 500 years. It's even the people back then, when they would say stuff, would go, huh? So and he's been scratching heads for centuries. Okay. Like everybody is done that is doing it. Cool. All right, so next we'll do Time to Climb. I'm thinking we're going to be able to do this one a couple of times. So I'll start off with jungle, and then if anybody wants to do one of the different themes, put it in the chat, and I will go with the most popular one. Not hearing anything. I guess we don't need to hear the music, but it kind of takes away a little bit. We don't. It's annoying. All right, we've got 3 more people. All right. Some people have lost power or network issues. All right, let's start. am pleasantly surprised. Good job, Curtis, getting the highest score, but you got a perfect score. I thought we were going to have to go through this a couple of times, but apparently we don't need to because you guys did really good on this. I had cut off the last question I was going to ask, but I guess we can go ahead now because you guys are good. Okay. All right. So, in the last one, how would you explain Macbeth to someone that hasn't read it? Okay. So, we will go there. That is the last thing that I plan on going over. So, um, please let me know what questions you have. I will put it on student pace when done. Yes. So, after I give people an opportunity to answer this one, I will go back to the beginning and put it on student pace so that you guys can access different parts of it. This is a pretty interesting way to study the finals preparation. And able to look at some of the stuff I was asked about. I actually have to go back through the chat and see what I was asked because I kind of forgot because I was working on the other thing. Okay. Wow. A couple people turned in some things. Cool. Now I can't update any grades with the Nearpods because we're in one. So once we're out of the Nearpod, I can update those because I have to access the reports. But if it's something that you turned on like through Cami or that sort of a thing, those things I can do now. Okay, so Macbeth Act 2, the Cami assignment. I have all of those graded that have been turned in.
And I'm first. Excuse me, can I get the ID?
Yes. Progress learning finally let me back in. Okay. I'm gonna send that to you in the chat. Okay. You should have everything you need to get into progress learning. Okay, so I think I've answered everything. And some very interesting answers. Okay, got some good answers to how you would explain it to somebody that hasn't seen it. Oh man. Anybody have any big weekend plans? I'm gonna go see a show tomorrow night. It's a live performance of Anastasia. Looking forward to that. Okay, looks like everybody has answered. So okay, I'm gonna put the whole thing on student. So let me put the whole thing on student view. I'm going to end this one and make a student paced one, and I'll share that link with you guys. Because for some reason it won't let me. I don't know why. But I'm making a new link. Student paste. All right, the one in the chat is the student-paced one because it wouldn't let me do the one that we're working on that way. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys some time to look over that and see if you have any questions for me. Okay. So yeah, I've got people are still working on progress learning. And I'm actually in it now, so I can see what the grade is. I can update those as they come in. It's lovely when it works out that way. Ooh, lots of hundreds in there too. That's amazing. Okay, progress learning has been submitted. It is updated on Canvas. We've got about 5 minutes left. If anybody has any more questions for me. The charging cable here. Okay, back in action. Nobody has any questions. I guess we can go over plans for next week. So, your final is on Monday, and I will dedicate the whole class to that. Once you are done your final, if you have other questions for me, then please let me know. Wednesday, then we start. If you need credit repair, that's when I will be going over those assignments with you, unless the final, you finish the final early, we discuss it then. We can go over that. So then I have off on Thursday, and haven't gotten a sub so far. Asked for one, but haven't got one. So Thursday of next week, I won't be here. And then the following week, you guys are doing graduation stuff. So if Wednesday's the last day I will see any of you. So it's gotta be exciting. You know, all your practicing and stuff like that. So weird as I became a proximity learning teacher. Sometimes the classes end a little faster than I'm expecting. They'll tell me that they go to a certain date. Then before that date comes, like, oh yeah, we're gonna have them do this, and then everybody goes away and I don't get to say goodbye. Like, so I will probably say goodbye to those of you that have passed all 4 quarters at the final. And then those of you that need to work on the credit repair, we'll hang out for a little bit longer. After you've done the final, I'll have a email go out to those of you that need it. So if you've passed all 4 quarters, don't expect that email. All right, well, have a good weekend, everybody. Nice seeing you.